Welcome to the Big Play Tailgate, everybody. Wild card weekend in the NFL. Why am I yelling? I'm going to tone it down a little bit. Ryan Tyler, Bob Golick, Tony Zarella, good to see you. And I got to tell you, Bob, we're going to get to the matchups in Wild Card Weekend, but it's pretty brutal for the Browns to once again go back in time here and be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, you know, we have we've done that before, but then again, it's not like it's a new thing. I mean, it would be brand new if we got in that we're able to stay in for a while. I don't know. I think when you get in there, you start feeling like, hey, this is kind of cool. And then you work hard. But the thing is, if you can't get the people together, then you can't get the right people in. You're always piecing it together. I don't know. I don't know what the thing is, but you know what? It's more fun in the playoffs than sitting at home.
Well, you know, guys, that's all I've known in my life, pretty much outside of the year with Baker, you went to playoffs. The year with Joe Flacco, you went to the playoffs. And it's interesting because does it suck to always suck? Yeah, of course it does. But at the end of the day, it's like you do get excited when you have a top draft pick, obviously in this case, second for the Browns. And at least I would like to go to the playoffs like the Steelers do perpetually. But then again, they're always middle of the pack. You don't necessarily have a high draft pick. At least it's a little bit exciting. But at the end of the day, you always suck. It sucks. Football sucks this time of the year. It is what it is, I suppose.
Earlier in the week, Andrew Berry held his postseason presser, saying, well, this falls on me. Either one of you, tell me what that means. What does that mean? Because I wasn't there. Usually for 17 years I was in that room. I'm not there. I would have asked, what does that mean? Because you're still up there as the general manager of this team.
Well, it means you get to keep your job, but all the assistants that probably had a little part in the season failing, but nowhere near the level that Andrew Berry had, well, they get to lose their jobs and pack up and find new places to go. But Andrew Berry gets to stay in Berea, comfortable, getting millions of dollars to make bad draft picks. That's basically what it boils down to.
It's a wonderful feeling of I am so sorry, I fall on my sword. But he says that knowing full well, there's nobody out there going, well, let's get rid of him then, because it's gonna stay the way it is, and they're gonna once again put it on everybody else, whether it be players, whether it be coaches. It's gonna go down to everybody else, and they're the ones that are gonna pay the price.
Can I respectfully correct you?
No.
There's a lot of people out there saying let's get rid of him. There's no one in there saying let's get rid of him.
That's what I meant.
I understand, sir. That's what I was saying. Because look, they have the number 2 pick in the draft. If you watch the Penn State Notre Dame game, do I really have to convince you? I know you did. Congratulations. Do I have to convince you on who? Would you not take Abdul Carter, the defensive end from Penn State?
I think number 1 would be Abdul Carter on my board. I mean, this would be an opportunity. Like you said before the show, we were talking, almost seems like a can't miss. Obviously, nothing is a can't miss, Jamarcus Russell. But it seems like, yes, you can't miss, right? I mean, Abdul Carter would be the one chance you have to finally what would hopefully be you get that premier pass rusher opposite of Miles, take some pressure off him, and it would alleviate some of the talk that Miles has talked about of, I want to win now. Well, adding a premier pass rusher, probably the top prospect in this year's draft, would certainly, I would assume, settle Miles' nerves.
And you know what? Putting somebody in besides getting somebody who's pretty good. You know, Clowney, when they put Clowney in there, he had a good reputation from being earlier, but he was playing a couple of years, and they picked him up and put him in there, but they should actually look really hard to find somebody to play against Miles. And plus, who knows how long Miles is going to be there. So you got to start establishing another guy that can pass rush from the outside.
I kept watching the game. It seemed like he was involved in every play when he was on the field, which was remarkable in and of itself that he was on the field because he can barely lift his left arm. But anyway, I kept thinking about Micah Parsons, who's with the Cowboys, the former Nittany Lion. They're different defensive players. Parsons was more of a tackling machine. This guy, Abdul Carter, is on the quarterback at all times. It is a relentless motor.
And it would be nice for once to go down that young route of somebody that could be here 5 years and turn into a superstar in just 1 or 2 years, right? Outside of the usual model that Andrew Berry and the Browns have taken is signing that veteran defensive end, your Olivier Vernons, your Jadeveon Clowneys, your Zadarius Smiths, who Abdul Carter, obviously maybe not right when he gets to the league, but should be better than all of those guys when he gets to that point of his career.
And it's better now. Well, not better now. It was better when we pass rushed, because we were allowed to fall on top of the quarterback. We were allowed to hit him just a little bit late and knock him on their back. I mean, I came through one time, landed on top of a Boomer Esiason, and he made like a. You have like a dog toy that makes a squeaky noise? Boomer sounded just like that. I started looking. I said, "Dude, what's squeaking?" He goes, "I don't know." So we had fun doing that. These guys obviously have learned a different way of doing it. So
yeah, it is what it is, right?
us.
All right, so they bounced Ken Dorsey, the offensive coordinator. It wasn't a good fit, obviously. I mean, where do they go from here? I mean, there's Tommy Rees. You're hearing names interview for this OC position. Alex Van Pelt. I mean, can you imagine if it's true that Stefanski really liked him and they fired him, not Stefanski? What do you think?
I mean, why the hell not? I mean, it wasn't going wrong when he was here, and you talk about, yes, they got rid of him because Deshaun Watson wasn't playing to the level, and Alex Van Pelt didn't feel it could get him there, but Alex Van Pelt knew he couldn't get him there. As it turns out, nobody can get him there, right? So you can Ken Dorsey, which was probably written on the wall. You brought him here to unlock this Deshaun Watson that you thought was there, but in reality was never there. And now you're on another OC search. I'd be fine with bringing back Alex Van Pelt. Why not? If the offense is really gearing up to give it back to Kevin Stefanski and you've seen it work with him by his side, let's do it.
I'd love to be the one that gives you the definitive answer that he's the perfect guy. But every time we think we have the definitive answer on anything, it turns out we hear wait for next year. So it's going to be more of a bring everybody together and see if they can work together type of thing. If you've got a coordinator that doesn't like the quarterbacks, then again, what quarterbacks do we have? What quarterbacks are we going to have? So it's kind of tough at this point to really find the right one.
I don't know about you guys, and I know we got to go to a break and then start breaking down the playoff games. When they came out, when Andrew Berry came out and said Deshaun Watson has had a setback, I don't want to be, I'm not conspiracy guy usually, but the first thought I had was how convenient, not for Deshaun Watson, but for the Browns to put this out there, put it in the news so that you just rest assured he's not going to be back in the building. And that's what that did.
I think that's exactly what it is. And you've honestly put it perfectly, Tony. It gives the fans a little bit of hope knowing he won't be there without them actually coming out and saying, because they won't ever do that, saying, no, Deshaun Watson's not our future. But the people inside the building, I'm sure they know that. I'm sure they talked to Miles privately about that. Tell him, listen, dude, Deshaun Watson is not going to play quarterback for us.
I like the way you said that. Give the fans hope that he's not going to be there.
Isn't that? But
Poor
that's
guy.
the sad state we're in. It's depressing.
It is, but this is not depressing. Bob Golick, I want your picks for these wild card games. This is a phenomenal. This is one of the best weekends in the NFL. We'll be back on the tailgate. All right, back here on the tailgate. Let's get to it. The Saturday night showdown. I want to start with the Ravens and the Steelers in Baltimore. The Ravens are giving 9.5 to a team that they know very well, who Ryan has been slip-sliding away with 4 straight losses.
Yes, that is a hefty spread. Doesn't surprise me, though. The Steelers this last quarter of the season really have struggled. They've lost by 20 points multiple times to what are playoff teams, the teams that they will be facing, starting with the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, Lamar Jackson should easily win this game. However, that's not the case. When you play a team 3 times in one season, you get to know the teams, of course, the history between them, 2 phenomenal Hall of Fame coaches. Anything could happen, I suppose. But I'll throw that all out the window. The Ravens are the much better team. They have the much better quarterback, potentially win MVP. I don't think he will, but this should come down to Lamar Jackson just taking the game over. When they get the lead, give it to Derrick Henry, and the rest should be wraps.
Bob, you've been there and done it. I asked you before the show. I'm going to ask you now. When you play a team for a third time, that only matters if both teams are good. I mean, obviously, if the Chiefs are playing the Titans 3 times in a year, it wouldn't matter. But here, does it really help the Steelers, who, by the way, beat them in a low-scoring game in mid-November?
Right.
Does it really help them in this game?
You start playing a team. By the way, can I borrow your phone? I got to do that whole. Okay, I'll bet afterwards. No, when it's everything to me, from my perspective, every game was different. Every game was new because offenses, defense are trying to bring in different things to offset the other team. I didn't look at it like there was a. Here's the third game. We should know them by now because you know what? They know us by now. And so it's just a matter of lining up and reading the plays, reading the reactions of the linemen, and going and making tackles.
So do you give, as the Ravens, if you were betting this game, do you give the 9.5?
I'm going to as soon as you give me your phone.
All right, Ryan, is that where you landed? You're giving 9.5?
No, I think the Steelers will cover this game. I think they're too defensively minded. It'll be a trenches game, you would assume, there with Derrick Henry, and if Najee Harris and Jalen Warren can get something going. I mean, Mike Tomlin's not going to go out softly. He never will, never will, and won't start this time. But I think the Ravens are just too good of a team, and I think Lamar knows when you talk about a legacy aspect, 2-time MVP is great and all, but what do people look at when you're going to the Hall of Fame? I mean, he still will get in there, but they want him to get that Super Bowl ring. Never been to a Super Bowl, right? This is the opportunity. You have should be a softer matchup in the Steelers to get down to that route. I think this will be a defining game for Lamar. If he gets bounced in the first round, I mean, it will be noisy in Baltimore.
Yeah, well said. Because Lamar Jackson is 2-4 in the playoffs, and in those games he scored 16 points on the average in those games. And this is a Ravens team that scores about 29, 30 a game, so it wouldn't make sense for that time. But I can't give 9.5 points. I just can't. If they were playing anybody else that had lost 4 straight games, I'd probably give the points. I'd say this has explosion written all over it for the Ravens. But because they're division rivals, because the Steelers found a way in mid-November to keep it close, and they're the Steelers, and they're well coached, I'm going to take the Steelers and the 9.5, knowing that they're going to lose this game to Lamar Jackson.
I just know that, like I said, the third game doesn't mean that they've had 2 before and now they figured them out. They got a bunch of guys going out there, and what they did during the season, they're going to do again now. Everybody's going to try and go, hey, watch. We're going to watch the film from all of those other games we played, and we did it too. I mean, when I played, we had the Houston Oilers. There was a team in Houston. That's right, Tennessee Titans. But you know, they were in the AFC North, and we played them twice a year, home and away. Then we got to the playoffs, and lo and behold, there's the Houston Oilers again. And, you know, I just went down, I looked at the guys. The only thing that you know is to be able to look at the personnel and realize, okay, that's so-and-so at guard, and he's kind of a speed guy, not a strength guy. So you kind of get to know some of the players out there, who's going to cheap shot you and who's not.
Yeah. Well, they're probably thinking that about you. No offense.
Probably.
Boomer definitely is.
Exactly. They're squeaking down in Houston. All right, so since they went to this format with the 7 teams in each conference, the 7 seeds have not fared well. I don't see that changing, Ryan, with the Broncos in Buffalo.
No, and I wouldn't be shocked if Sean Payton comes in with a game plan that at least makes it a competitive game. But at the end of the day, you're going against what would probably be the MVP, Josh Allen. And the Bills right now, outside of the Chiefs, are probably what they would say the second best team. I still actually do believe they're the best team. And it's going to be too much. Listen, you have Pat Surtain who will lock down. But listen, Josh Allen doesn't need that, right? I mean, you've seen what he does with his legs, similar to Lamar Jackson. I mean, I believe 11 rushing touchdowns on the year. He'll be way too much to handle. But bright future for the Broncos. Seriously, Bo Nix seems to be that guy. And he's going into his first playoff game here in Buffalo. So I expect it won't be necessarily pretty. I expect it to be an ugly game. But the Bills should absolutely have no problem beating the Broncos.
So you give the 8.5 if you're Buffalo.
I feel more confident betting Bills to cover than I do the Ravens. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. All right, Bob?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that when it comes down to big games, I think Josh Allen is a guy that is a good leader. And the one thing you do need in post games like this, postseason games like this, is you got to have somebody who can keep you together if things start falling apart. Do we expect them to start falling apart? No way. But you know, he's the team, and he's the camaraderie and everything that they have. I think is going to, at home, is going to be the thing that puts them over the top.
Only 3 rookie quarterbacks in NFL history have gone on the road and won a playoff game. I don't see that changing with Bo Nix. As good as, and I agree with Ryan, long term, I think he's going to be for Denver. And I think Buffalo, I really believe, as crazy and wild as that fan base has been for a very long time, I think this year they really believe, rightfully so, it's their time. I think that's going to be electric. That's going to be Sunday afternoon. I think it's a late game, right, on Sunday afternoon. But either way, I think Buffalo will feed off of that. I think the team will, and I think they win handily over the Denver Broncos. More in the AFC, and then we'll tackle the NFC when the tailgate rolls.
Don't think I don't remember the Buffalo Bills fans trying to tip our bus over.
That's right. Back here on the tailgate. Ryan Tyler, Bob Golick, Tony Zarella. Bob, you mentioned the team in Houston. Well, of course, they have a team in Houston that they do play only playoff games on Saturday afternoon. That is a remarkable streak. Every playoff game that the Texans...
Is that a religious thing?
No, it's not. I mean, it's becoming one. I think if they win, and they're hosting the Chargers, and I think the Chargers go in there and win. The point spread is the Chargers on the road giving 3 to the Texans.
Yeah, I not totally consistent, but watching the Chargers this year, they seem like they are one of the teams that has some consistency. I know they've had some injuries, but I think coming home and playing against the Texans, I just don't see a way for the Texans. I mean, they're a good team, but in a playoff game like this, especially the first one, which it's really embarrassing if you lose the first one. It's okay. Well, then again, it sucks if you lose the second one, too. Never mind. Erase that.
Probably worse if you lose the second one.
You know what's really worse? Losing the AFC Championship game 2 years in a row.
But he's let that go.
You were there.
But you've let that go.
You were there.
It's not my fault, Ryan.
Well, it might not be a religious thing, but Houston fans better pray C.J. Stroud's O-line shows up, because I think that's a big reason that we've seen this quote-unquote sophomore slump from C.J. Stroud. And listen, somebody had to win that division, right? And it happened to be the Houston Texans. You lose Stephon Diggs, you lose Tank Dell against the Chiefs. Now you're down to Nico Collins, who, by the way, is a phenomenal receiver, deserves every bit of that money he got in the offseason. But when it comes down to it, the Chargers are a better coach team. They have the better quarterback. Their defense is legit. Now, the one thing that you could say is the Chargers haven't necessarily beaten these playoff teams in the regular season. Came close to beating the Chiefs, but that didn't happen. But the thing is, the Texans are probably right now, for multitude of reasons, the worst team in the playoffs. So I think the Chargers go into Houston and they come out victorious.
And by the way, the defense for the Chargers, everybody's ranked certain things: run, pass, scoring. Scoring defense for the Chargers, they rank number 1 in the league. And when you have an offense that isn't your dominant offense in the National Football League, going up a team that is the top at keeping points off the scoreboard, it's going to go Chargers.
The Chargers, for many years, had a quarterback that just could not get over the top. I'm not comparing Herbert to Phillip Rivers. But by the way, Herbert, would you put him top 7 in the NFL?
Oh, 100%, absolutely.
Okay. So, and Rivers, of course, is a phenomenal quarterback, of course. But you wonder when Herbert's going to take that next step in terms of leading the team. He's not saddled with a Norv Turner and the coaches that Rivers had. He's got Harbaugh. A big difference there, by the way. But is this Herbert's time to at least go a couple of rounds deep?
Well, I could make a joke about Phillip Rivers getting on top with all those kids he has, but I won't go there. But Justin Herbert is bounds beyond what Phillip Rivers was. Phillip Rivers may be a Hall of Fame quarterback, but that doesn't matter. No playoff success, we know that. But Justin Herbert is just a totally different level, right? And what Jim Harbaugh is able to do in just 1 year in Los Angeles has been incredible. Everybody bought in. You departed ways with your top 2 receivers in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. You draft Ladd McConkey. Quentin Johnson has a horrible, horrible rookie season, bounces back and has a better one under Jim Harbaugh. And Jim Harbaugh, I guess, remains to be the quarterback whisperer because Justin Herbert is playing outstanding.
In his career, Herbert's got, I think, a quarterback rating of like 101, 102 over the season or over the career. This year, he's got the smallest amount of yardage per game. He just isn't producing. And again, maybe it's not him. Maybe they're going with other guys instead, handing off a lot more. But when you see a guy who is ranked that well in career, you'd think he'd putting numbers up right now.
Absolutely. And he's one of those guys, and I'm sure you'll agree because you already put it, you said no question he's up there among the game's greats. But if I need that throw, whenever that throw is, wherever it is, I would trust him to make it. He's just one of those players.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, you've seen it multiple times through the regular season, and he should have already a playoff win under his belt. That collapse against the Jaguars, you got rid of Brandon Staley. That was the best thing that could ever happen to that organization, and bring in Jim Harbaugh. But no, Justin Herbert delivers one of the best balls in the NFL. He's smart, too, which is an underrated part of him, and he's big. He's a big quarterback.
Can anybody not name the Bills beat the Chiefs in these playoffs?
I would say if it's not going to be the Bills, it'll be the Ravens. But in terms of matchups, I mean, it seems they always beat the Ravens, right? And I mean, you go back to week 1, I believe it was the first game of the regular season, actually. Isaiah Likely's toe was out, and if it wasn't by an inch, they would have won that game. I think they could do it. I mean, now they finally figured out after the first 2 weeks of the season that they're allowed to use Derrick Henry, who they just spent a bag to get. So that was an interesting development there. Now they're reaping the rewards of that.
Yeah. You agree with that? I just think people have dethroned the Chiefs. I get it. A litany of close games. I completely understand they're not blowing people out.
But
and Mahomes is a Pro Bowler.
But does that mean that they're not what they were, or does that mean they're doing enough to win the games? Maybe pushed by a better team. Maybe they win by a touchdown.
Well, here's the way to
win
ask
by
you.
3.
Bob,
we're used to seeing them dominate.
Let me ask you this way. You're a 3-time Pro Bowler. You were in the league a long time with great success. Do you think the Chiefs just don't feel a sense of urgency until they have to? Because they've been there and done it so many times that when they get pushed to the wall, they know they can find a way to win.
No.
I
think it does come down to that. Between Mahomes' commercials, I know a lot of times he likes to get what was it? Insurance, right?
It's a State Farm thing.
State Farm, that's right. I think that they do. They feel with Kelsey and all these guys, they've been through the success so much that I just think that they don't want to waste it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're going 15-1. I'm not counting the last game of the season, obviously, but that's not a fluke, right? I mean, there's nobody that you would trust. I don't care if didn't make the Pro Bowl. If you have 2 minutes to score and you're down a touchdown, you're putting the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands. There's nobody in the NFL that would disagree with that, honestly. The only thing I'd say about the Chiefs is a little bit different and they're still won 15 games, which is crazy, is you're seeing a little bit of more defensive lapses under Steve Spagnuolo that you didn't see previously. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes' numbers don't stand out, but listen, you were out Hollywood Brown, the guy you traded for all year. Patrick Mahomes tore Rashee Rice's his own teammate's ACL on accident. That's crazy. And you get D-Hop in now and you see D-Hop playing well. Chiefs are still obviously the favorite for a reason, but they're not necessarily the same team.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. All right, speaking of great years, by the way, Baker Mayfield and the Bucs were hitting the NFC. And when we come back.
Good cup of coffee, Tony.
Honey, that's great coffee. Well, I was going to ask, do you think there's a large percentage of fans here in Northeast Ohio rooting for Baker Mayfield, but I don't have to?
Well, if you're not totally bitter, which if you are, I'd understand. But at the end of the day, Baker Mayfield gave his heart and soul to this team, and you can't take that away from him. And whether you want to talk about they played him, forced him to play through the injury, and that led to it, they already had in mind, moved on from him. Listen, it's a guy that you saw get drafted here. He gave you some great years, gave you a lot of good memories. The playoff win in Steelers in Pittsburgh, obviously the most memorable. And you get to see a guy who moves on, grows up, matures, gets married, has kids, and now he's found success, gets paid, deals with personal struggles as the story came out with his father and brother, I guess reportedly stealing from him. And now he's bringing the Bucs to the playoff 2 straight years, winning that division. I'm rooting for the kid. No way around it.
All right, so the Bucs are giving the Commanders, Bob, 3. Just let's put that out there.
Yeah.
All right, Bucs favored by 3. Sorry to interrupt.
I'm going Bucs. I mean, when you look at that situation with Baker goes out there, plays hard, plays hurt, gets a hold of the team. He had control and leadership of that team. He's out there getting hurt. He hurts his shoulder, and now he comes off. They look at it, the Browns that is, and they take him to the tent. Now, they know that he's hurt, but yet they put him back out on the field. Mm-hmm. A lot of players wouldn't go back out there, but Bakerfield, I guess he's an old soul. He wanted to go out there and finish the game. And for doing that, he was sent away to, I think he went to Carolina
for a year.
And then he went down to the Buccaneers for that Tom Brady mojo. And I think anybody who is a good person, who believes in loyalty, you should give to a guy who puts his butt on the line for you.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's got the mojo down there. What he's doing is working. He's had a phenomenal season. Here's the thing. They beat the Commanders by 17 back in week 1. That was when Jaden Daniels was just starting his NFL career. And, of course, he's tremendous. Yeah. He's gone on to do a lot of great things. He might have even beaten Baker out for a Pro Bowl spot, I think. But anyway, here's the point. The Commanders can't stop the run. for all the talk about Baker Mayfield, they could win this game by running the football, not with Baker passing.
Yeah. Gosh, I can't remember his name. He's behind Rashad White now. Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving has been tremendous this season, and if the Bucs didn't lose Chris Godwin earlier in the year, that's when they were really looking scary. But Baker Mayfield has been playing outstanding football. Like I said, now bringing them back to playoffs 2 times in a row, you're playing in Tampa Bay. That will obviously play well to Baker. I'll take the Bucs to win this game, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was a thriller. I mean, what Jaden Daniels has done in a short time is absolutely tremendous. You talk about a quick turnaround when you hire Dan Quinn, right? Cliff Kingsbury comes in as OC. He gets things cooking. Commanders, similar to the Broncos, found their guy and they're on the come up.
You know what's great about Baker too? He's like an overall football player. He would get along with the defensive guys,
Yep.
you know, the killers on defense as well as the guys on offense. And that kind of person brings everybody together, because there are times where you look at the offense and going, that's 3 and out again. I got to go back on the field. Can you give me a break? And you start getting a little angry at each other. And Baker's the kind of guy that'll keep them focused.
I know. And you mentioned Washington culture. It's amazing what happens when you change and fix the culture. Eagles, Packers on Sunday afternoon. Jalen Hurts hurt once again with a concussion. You mentioned last week on the show, the only thing that concerns you maybe about the Eagles, or at least why you don't put them atop the NFC, is they're so run-reliant. Do you think it catches up to them in this game, or can they get past the Packers?
Packers are probably the hardest first-round matchup outside of obviously the Vikings that the Rams have to deal with for circumstances. But listen, if the Packers are healthy, Jordan Love, we saw what he did in the playoffs knocking off Dallas. He played well, and in fact, he was one of the best quarterbacks down that stretch. It hasn't been the same this season, but listen, you add Josh Jacobs, who isn't Saquon Barkley, but can certainly compete with Saquon Barkley. And yeah, listen, if you get down early and you rely on Saquon Barkley so heavily as the Eagles do, you can't afford to run the ball 30 times a game, right? Like, you're going to need somebody to step in there and deliver throws. And Matt LaFleur, all he does is win. He's been to the playoffs time and time and time again. So is Nick Sirianni, I get that, but once you're getting deep in the playoffs, especially like teams against the Lions, you can't afford to rely on that one bit.
And he's coming back this year after 2 weeks out from the concussion protocols. How you come back? There's 2 ways of coming back from an injury. One is physically. Can you hold up with that knee? Does that shoulder, one of those things that you're hurt, is it functional now? Is it working for you? But you also have the mental side where you're like, okay, if I get myself in that situation again, am I going to be able to throw my body in it the way I did last time? Or, you know, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh, man, this is going to happen again. So that's the kind of thing with Hurts. You got to deal with that. I don't know. He seems like a little bit of a guy that doesn't really think too much about the emotional or emotional part of the game.
Well, the Eagles are giving what, 4.5, 5? It's kind of fluctuated a little bit. I'm going to take the Packers in the points. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't really know where to land with the Eagles. No pun intended. I don't. When I think of the best teams in the NFC, you can't rule them out. They're always there near the top. Do I see them representing the NFC? I can't do it. I don't know why, but I would give the point. So where do you stand on the point spread?
I'll actually take the Packers to win this game. This will be my upset. I mean, if Jalen Hurts, regardless if he comes back, if he's not on his A game, they're going to have a tough time winning, and especially if it is Kenny Pickett, then that's what she wrote. But, I mean, at the end of the day, right, unless Saquon has another monster game, which he's very capable of, don't get me wrong, he's been probably one of the best players this whole season. It's going to take a lot, and I'll take the Packers defense to stand toe-to-toe with one of the best in the NFL is the Eagles defense, but I'll take Jordan Love, who's shown he can perform in the playoffs. Not that Jalen Hurts hasn't, but I'm leaning towards a better coach in this one as well, and Matt LaFleur, I think, is leagues above Nick Sirianni.
You know, as well as the fact that a lot of people like what Love's done in Green Bay, I have a hard time looking past Hurts and Saquon Barkley. And those guys, I know there's probably some, well, if they do this and they do that, sometimes you just got to look at the weapons and just say, this is what's going to happen. So I'm going with the Eagles.
All right, there's another team, a 14-win team that I think is going down this week, and we'll talk about
The
that.
Cleveland Browns.
Yes, and the NFL coaching carousel already underway. Some controversial firings, that and more. Stick around. final game of this wild card weekend will be played Monday night. They've moved it to Glendale, Arizona, home of the Cardinals, because of the fires in Los Angeles. It's the Rams and the Vikings. The Rams are hosting the Vikings. The Vikings are a 14-win team, and they're in the wild card weekend on the road. And they're giving 1.5 to Jared Goff and the Rams. And I'm going to start it off by saying I'm taking the Rams. I think the Vikings, after a phenomenal year, are going down. And I'm going to ask you, is it a stark overreaction to Sam Darnold's struggles last week when he could not hit a wide-open Justin Jefferson in the end zone? And, you know, look, the Lions are the Lions, but am I overreacting by saying that?
I don't know if you're overacting. That's the thing. I don't know, and we'll find out, right? Because the easy answer would be the Vikings, and if it's the true Sam Darnold under the lights that you saw against the Lions, then yeah, the Rams have a really good chance of winning this. But if I'm going to take the season as a whole, which I prefer to take that more data over the one game, then Sam Darnold is a great quarterback, as we've seen this year.
I think we've seen different kinds of Sam Darnold. Obviously, he came in and had to build himself up to what it is. I don't know, something about him this year that just seems sporadic. He has great games, but then he has less than stellar games. I don't know. I'm going with the Rams on this one.
A lot of people looked at his numbers, and again, you can't just go by the stats. I agree with that, right. but his numbers were below mediocre against Detroit in the marquee matchup, Sunday night match. Everyone's watching, right? He did not look good, and they said, "Oh, there's the Jets, Sam Darnold." I don't know that that's fair. I thought the Rams have been a scary team anyway for the last month or two. Even in a neutral site.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Similar to why I think the Packers are going to win. Not to say that I think the Rams are going to win, but it's an amazing coach who has dealt with adversity and overcame it, and that's Sean McVay, right? Cooper Kupp has kind of been erased from the offense these last couple of weeks, which isn't great. You're going to have to rely on Puka Nacua, but at the end of the day, Justin Jefferson is better than Puka Nacua. Kevin O'Connell still is a fantastic coach, probably would have won Coach of the Year, still might. I think you give it to Dan Campbell, but this is going to be a tough matchup. The Vikings defense is fantastic. Rams defense, not so much. I'll take, I guess, kind of like the better players, and Justin Jefferson. Aaron Jones is playing really well. I'll go with the Vikings to win this one.
All right, speaking of Dan Campbell, I asked you this about the Chiefs. Can anybody beat the Lions?
That is a fantastic question. I do think they can. I think it'll be very tough. I mean, you saw what the formula to do that is when Josh Allen beat them is you have to score a buttload of points. You have to get up early and force them to be on their toes. So if anybody's going to do that, you're going to need to score, like I said, at least 35 points. And there's not that many offenses that can do that still remaining in the playoffs.
That is so true. And you watch what the Vikings did. So they get down there early in that game, and they felt the need to go for it on fourth down instead of taking the points, probably thinking, well, you know, 3 points at a time is not going to win this game. They're going to put up a ton of points, as you said, Ryan. But also that changes your philosophy now, because now you're saying even early in the first quarter, we've got to go for it on 4th and 4 when you could just kick, and they come away empty-handed because Darnold couldn't hit Justin Jefferson. Do you see that affecting the way the other team coaches?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I think that they are consistent. The Lions are consistent in the fact that, I mean, they may not come away with the win, which they pretty much always did, but they have an attitude when they go in there that I haven't seen over the years from the Lions. Now they've got cooler looking uniforms, and which has helped them a lot. I mean, people don't realize how cool your uniform looks. I had a player one time that got before he got cut. He told me and Clay Matthews, Don't worry about, it's not how good you play, it's how good you look playing. And right now the Lions have the advantage. I don't know, they just seem like they're playing with an emotional edge right now, and going into the playoffs, I don't see anything changing.
I don't know, Jedrick Wills looks pretty cool when he plays with his visor, but I don't think he's getting paid for that. But
I did that one time. I put a visor on.
Did you like it?
Every time I hit somebody, sweat flew off of my face into the inside of the mask. And every time in the huddle, I'm just like, and so I went to the sideline and go, cut this piece of crap off of me. It was cool, too. It was a Raider helmet.
Yeah.
And it had had one of those mirrored ones.
Oh, yeah.
Silver. Yeah,
Good
it was
luck.
nice.
Yeah,
So
but
I
Tony,
wore it
to go
home.
back to your point about does it change the way you coach? I mean, it has to, right? I mean, when it's 4th down and you're looking to go for 7 instead of the 3, which you have to do to beat a team like the Lions, is you need a quarterback that can improvise on 4th down, get out of the pocket if things go bad, and make some magic happen. And there's not that many quarterbacks who can do that. I would say Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. And what's the thing about those 3? They all play in the AFC. I don't think there's a quarterback capable of what they do in a big moment like that.
I'm on record repeatedly as saying I want the Lions to win the whole thing. Lions or Buffalo, it would feel like Cleveland winning it because
Absolutely.
You
know it's possible.
It is.
Yeah.
Right. It's possible for the Browns too, right?
Right.
If they fix this thing, but the Lions have never been. Bills have been in the 80s or 90s and couldn't win it. 90s, sorry, Bob. And but I look at the Lions, and I'm going to bring this up again. Is it going to bite them? Is their philosophy at some point not taking the points and living on the edge, which got them here? Is it? You think it's going to ever cost them?
I think it very well could. I mean, it's not far. I don't think it's easy to see a possible scenario where that happens. Do I want it to? No, because I'm with you. I would want the Bills or Lions to either one of those teams to win the Super Bowl. But I mean, I respect Dan Campbell for that. The fact that you're doing what got you there, and it'd be oftentimes in those high pressure situations where potentially not your job in this case, but a fan base, yeah, they will be at your neck if you do a dumb decision that costs you from going to the Super Bowl. But I love it. I mean, that's football at its finest. It's putting it all out on the line.
And by the way, it's not a standard. Hey, we're going for this every time, or we're going for the field goal every time. We're going to go for the points. It's a situational thing. I mean, it's easy to talk about it and what they like to do. If you put them in a situation where they're feeling good about what they're doing, they got momentum, and they're going to say it's fourth and whatever, and they'll go ahead and go for it. But sometimes if you're having offensive issues, kick the ball, get it over with, and start fresh.
You nailed it, because I'm not just talking about in the red zone and going for 7 instead of 3. I'm talking about being on your own 38-yard line and not punting.
Yeah.
Because he thinks, you know what, I want to dictate the terms of this game. I don't care if it's first quarter, fourth quarter, we're not punting in that scenario. That's what he does. So we'll see if it plays out.
I talked to Matt Millen when he was the president of the Lions way back when we were teammates with the Raiders. And I interviewed him, and I said, Matt, you realize you've got this thing so screwed up now that no player will ever be a president of a team again. He goes, yeah, I know. So yeah, he didn't have a good run there with the Lions.
He didn't, but it's good days in Detroit right now.
Yeah.
All right, but not good days for every coach. Of course, the changes have already begun. We'll talk about that when we come back. All right, guys, I'm going to give you 3 names here, coaches who took the bullet. Antonio Pierce, Gerard Mayo, Doug Peterson. Did any of them surprise you?
If anyone surprised me, I suppose it'd be Antonio Pierce. I mean, doesn't surprise me, but if it had to, I'd pick Antonio Pierce. You come in as the interim coach after you get rid of McDaniels, and they played really well around him. You rallied and got some of your only wins of the season. You head into the offseason with a little bit of hope, and it all comes down to you didn't really have a great quarterback. Between Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, you still won more games than our Browns. I thought they would have given him another year to draft a quarterback and see what they could build under Antonio Pierce, especially given they know he was a Raider. He's know that culture very well from California as well. So I was a little bit surprised by that. Mayo, Doug Peterson, not so much.
Bob?
That Raider attitude is kind of mellowed a bit in its old age. It's not Al Davis's Raiders anymore. It's Mark Davis. And
that's just from the haircut.
That's just from the haircut. Antonio Pierce came in, and people just didn't care for the guy. Some of the players didn't, but he was having some success, and he was getting the guys fired up. A lot of people thought they're probably bringing somebody in, just have him finish the season and bring somebody else in, but they decided to keep him, hoping that would be. I mean, when I was there, they brought Art Shell became our head coach. Mm-hmm. So you got a former player going out there and doing it, but you got to perform. If you don't do something new and exciting, and we've seen so many teams basically say, well, I didn't have the players. Well, you know what? That doesn't wash anymore. I mean, nobody cares if you don't have the players. It's a good thing to talk about on the Big Play Tailgate show. But
you had to name the best show out there.
I know.
Hey, Gerard Mayo was a former player and a popular player and part of that family, so to speak, and they couldn't wait to lower the boom on him. They did it Sunday night, and are you shaking your head?
I'm shaking my head because an absolute colossal failure by Robert Kraft to go ahead and let a lame duck head coach go ahead and win that game, making your draft position less. There's no reason. If you're looking for this type culture win, which, by the way, I don't really think it matters that much when you're talking about having the number 1 overall pick, say what you will, inexcusable. If you knew he was going to be canned, you should have lost that game. Credit to Joe Milton, who I'll start the train for Joe Milton to the Browns if I have to.
I liked it.
That looked That looked really great.
Yeah, no, it did though.
That's how fired up I am. Joe Milton looked fantastic.
Yeah.
And listen, they have Drake May, their future, but wasn't surprising to see Gerard Mayo get moved on from. We'll see what Robert Kraft does from there.
I think a lot of people were watching that game because it was on here in Northeast Ohio, saying, "Who's this quarterback?" I mean, but. To your point, because some people thought maybe he got canned because he lost and they dropped from first in the draft to fourth. I don't think that's it. And there's rumblings, that happen when it comes out and all of a sudden he was hard on certain people in the organization and whatever. But did you really think anybody following Belichick was going to succeed? You lose Tom Brady, then Belichick walks, and he hadn't been successful the last couple of years. So
it's going to be tougher. He's going to have bigger. See, when I played with the Patriots, we sucked, and we knew we sucked from the beginning. So we were 2-14, and people still went, eh.
Yeah,
they still cheered
those
for
were
us.
Tough days there.
They were tough days. They were tough days. You saw some.
I did see him, and and I didn't
Our
blame you.
cheerleaders were good.
I didn't blame you though.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. So when Mayo got the axe, I thought, well, is Vrabel waiting in the wings? And all of a sudden, that would be a natural thing, right? They know they're going to get Mike Vrabel, but he's doing the tour and he's talking to Chicago. Is Chicago a better spot for him than New England?
Well, Stephen Vogt would like a word about replacing a legendary manager and succeeding. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't really expect somebody to come in with a rookie quarterback, no offensive weapons, and expect to be what Bill Belichick was in his prime. But in terms of Chicago, I mean, I would say yes. You have both what potentially be superstar quarterbacks. Drake May honestly looked better this season than Caleb Williams did. But you got DJ Moore, you got Keenan Allen, you have great young pieces on defense. I mean, great both cities. I guess the one thing would be the connection for Mike Vrabel. But let me ask you guys that. Is that really that much of a factor in Mike Vrabel's decision making, do you think?
No, I think
I agree.
Is the table set?
I agree.
It doesn't have to be completely set. Doesn't have to take over the Chiefs. But who wants a disaster?
Exactly, I completely agree.
And as we've seen, some teams have built an offense or a defense, and when you bring in a new coach, in good situations, they'll say, "Okay, you do your thing. I know we built this, but whatever your offense is, whatever your scheme is, we're going to go with you because." It's better to have the coach set things up than to have him just trying to wrench them back in and tell them to run it the way they want to. That hardly ever works.
Let me ask you about two more guys. Mike McCarthy, I believe in a few days he's unrestricted basically. He can go anywhere, right? Do you think, I know the answer to this, but do you think his agent is floating the fact that teams want to talk to him?
Very interesting that the Cowboys denied the Bears to interview him, and I don't know for the life of me why there are some people that are saying Jerry Jones should retain Mike McCarthy. I mean, go ahead and do it. I don't care about America's team. But listen, you had an audition this season to prove you could get past the divisional round, right? You signed Dak Prescott to that fat contract. I understand he got hurt, but you didn't play well at all. You missed the playoffs, and because he won like 5 of his last 7 meaningless games, we're going to sit here and say that he deserves another chance. I think it's ludicrous, but Jerry Jones is the craziest guy probably on the planet, so it wouldn't surprise me one bit if we see him back with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think he's I don't think it's an issue there whether he keeps him or lets him go. They talk about owners who are involved in decision-making, and some are good, some are bad. They talk about here in Cleveland, is it a good thing? Are they the ones that are making the decisions? With Dallas, it's him.
Yeah.
And so he's going to put a guy in there that, one, he can get along with, 2, has the same kind of thought process that he has, and 3, will do what Jerry tells him to do.
All right, before we go, Bill Belichick is now getting phone calls from teams around, unless somebody's feeding that too to the media, and it's not true. But however, could you see an NFL team paying UNC the $10 million to get him out?
Tom Brady is going to take Belichick to the Raiders.
All right, you heard it here first. Save the clip.
No, I don't think Bill's the type to, now you see me somewhere else, now you want me. I think he's way too proud for that. I think he understands there's a chance to do something different this late in his career. I mean, you can talk about, is he that obsessed with getting that winning title? I believe it's Don Shula who has the most won games. I don't know. That would still take him a couple seasons. I think he understands that they didn't want him. He's too proud to go back.
Can you imagine what his NIL price is? It'd be through the roof.
He's already started with Lombardi, and of course Freddie Kitchens was already there at UNC.
Yeah.
He's already started putting that staff together. He did that immediately, and so in his son, so maybe he would turn over. Who knows? I wondered if he'd have a problem working for, even though he's a minority owner, Brady. Would he have a problem working for Tom Brady? All of a sudden, Brady's the boss.
I think even though he's part owner, I mean, even before Al Davis was the general manager of the he didn't just say owner. It was some kind of title that basically said, you don't own this all by yourself. There's other people here too. And Tom's now got 20%. I finally got it cleared by the NFL. And
Is it that? I didn't know it was that high. Okay.
yeah, I heard 20%. And in doing so, I got a feeling that Brady and Bill have been together so long that they have more of a respect or more of a relationship. I mean, I think they've gone past the player-coach relationship a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thought. I never thought about it like that. Would Bill Belichick want to go somewhere and potentially have success? But you could also be like, oh, well, Tom Brady's there as well, so it's not all Bill Belichick. We know Tom Brady went off to success, won a Super Bowl. Bill Belichick, not so much. That's a great thought. I don't think it would happen. I couldn't see it, but you never know.
And the Raiders are looking for a quarterback. Maybe
there you go.
Come out of retirement again.
Yeah, well, I don't think he can if he owns the team. I think that's the issue, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But hey, is there anybody before we go that hasn't been fired that you either think will be or should be?
Should be Chris Ballard, the GM for the Indianapolis Colts. Every team since I believe he came as the GM has won that division at least twice, I believe. Colts have never won it. Inexcusable. Shane Steichen, whatever, maybe not. He'll stay there, but that would be my answer for somebody who should be fired. If I was in Indianapolis, I would be upset.
Yeah.
Bob?
I'm just watching him as I go along. I didn't want to sit here and play this game with people's lives, but it's easy to see if your favorite team's out there and you see them, and you're always yelling at them more so than you are cheering for them. It's probably a good time to change.
I thought down in Cincinnati, I thought Zach would be. I wrestled with it because they offensively put the numbers up because you have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, but talk about doing very little with a lot. And you're not in the playoffs, and you had a dog year, and you didn't find a way, or at least hire the right people to fix that defense. That's the one I thought.
I've been pounding the drum for a while that I don't know how Zach Taylor still has a job. Like, he has to have blackmail on the Brown family is the only conclusion that I've come up with. Inexcusable for some of the late decisions that he does. Firing Lou Anarumo isn't enough. And what I always worried about was Mike Vrabel going to the Bengals. You stay in Ohio, you have a defense that you need to fix, you got a superstar quarterback, you get the right coordinators in there, that would be scary.
But that would be,
and I agree with you on that.
Would be good. Yeah.
And we've talked about it, and that would be the job if I was Vrabel. I would go to Cincinnati because I've got the quarterback, I got the receiver, the defense I can fix, they can feed off me, and here we go. And it's almost like a add water, quick fix, right? We'll see how it plays out.
And the offense is something that looks like as long as people are healthy, it's going to take care of itself.
Absolutely.
All right. Good job, guys. We'll see how it plays
Thank
out.
you very
Wild Card
much.
Weekend. We'll see you next week for week 2 in the NFL playoffs.